I'm going to tell him when to turn it off.
Okay.
So,
As long as we get that under control.
let me make that point.
Don't you want that
So
light?
halfway through, I'm going to have Facebook turn off because I'm going to show you some photographs and videos of people I don't have express permission to show them on the internet. It's only with respect to them. The other thing is, what Jonathan started out with was a very interesting point, and that is, excuse me, ladies? Excuse me, ladies? I'm
You
not
need the
trying to
mic.
compete.
You need the mic? I think you
Yeah,
should.
no, I'm all right. I just as long as I got everyone's attention.
Do
So,
you need the microphone for
No,
the
no.
presentation? Okay.
we commonly hear Christian pastors talk about the fullness of the Gentiles coming in, and then the end of the age. One thing that they skip over that's really messianic is that the fullness of the remnant of the Jewish people who believe in Messiah must also come. Now that may not come right away, it may come through the tribulation, but the remnant is a very critical part. So the title I have up here is Celebrate Messiah, and the ministry that I'm telling you about is Celebrate Messiah New Zealand. The director is Scott Brown, and two other missionaries, you may know their names, Teresa and Michael Thomas, and I visited them. So I will be mentioning them throughout this presentation. And this for me is a personal mission trip to help gather the remnant of Israel. Now, if we look at all of the efforts of people throughout history, and we have a big book of everyone who contributed to bring maybe the gospel to other people or the Jews, I get two words: Todd helped. So the beginning part, I'm going to talk, I call this a public portion. I'm going to give you a little bit of about 4.5 minutes of sights and activities from New Zealand. If you haven't been to New Zealand, I want to give you a little slice of New Zealand. This will be from my 2017 trip with my daughter. We went over for 3 weeks. And then I will tell you very briefly about my 2020, my January itinerary. And then I'm going to give you an overview of Celebrate Messiah New Zealand. It started out small and now it's expanded, and it's actually covered a large geographic area on the South Island of New Zealand. And then I'll finish up with a little bit about the goal of my mission trip. So, sites and activities. There are 6 different videos to show, and let's see if I can bring the first one up. Hello. No. Okay. Yeah, you turn the sound down. So let me. No, don't do it. Okay, this is the Auckland Airport in New Zealand. Is it not playing?
That's fine.
Okay, there we go. Arriving in New Zealand, we went to the North Island first. That's Maori outwork. That's the native New Zealanders. The Cape Reinga is at the very northern tip of the North Island. This is Whangarei. It's halfway down the island. It's a waterfall right in the middle of town. My daughter and I went to a bird recovery area and got to see actually a live kiwi. That's a native bird. We did paddleboarding. We went to Hobbiton, which is the Hobbit movie set for the Tolkien movies. Some of you know the Hobbit holes. And if you know Bilbo and Frodo Baggins,
Yeah.
this is Bag End. That's that famous Hobbit hole. Then we went to Hamilton. It's halfway down the. This is Maori artwork in one garden. But the Hamilton Gardens are a public garden, and they'll have an Italian garden, they'll have a Japanese garden, they'll have English garden. And there's an English rose garden. You walk into the gate, and there's 5 acres of roses.
Wow.
And then we got on the airplane in Auckland and flew down to Queenstown. And I'm standing on the shore of town of Queenstown, and you see the water in the mountains. I'll talk about Zula Lodge a little bit later. This is a backpacker lodge where Israelis stay. The backpacker room has bunk beds in it. My daughter and I stayed there for 2 nights in 2017. Lots of vineyards. There's a lot of sheep, a lot of deer, a lot of cattle in New Zealand as well. We went on a 3-day hike called the Rootburn Track with about 30 other people. And it's a good way of really seeing the mountains, getting above tree line. is sort of a more tropical area of the hike. This is Lake Mackenzie. And it's very misty, as if you can't tell from my daughter here. Some upper stream on the mountain stream. If you have a bottle that's empty and you're way up in the higher elevations, you can get drinking water right out of the stream. This is a lodge we stayed at. The only way in and out of that lodge, other than hiking, is a helicopter.
Wow.
And then a more arid pass, Landis Pass, driving through the South Island. You see the lupins, very pretty. Elephant Rocks is a set that this area was used for a Narnia film. You can see the elephant there with the eye, and a sleeping elephant with its trunk out front. We visited the southeast coast. This is Oamaru. It was established in 1887. The architecture really takes you back. And this is on the shore, so we went down to the beach, and you can see seals and sea lions. Mareki boulders are a little further down the coast. I can't tell you how they were formed, but they're very interesting. If you go at low tide like we did, you can walk around, sit on one. We saw yellow-eyed penguins and blue penguins. Yellow-eyed penguins are much larger. They're maybe about 1.5 feet tall. And I think I've got the movie playing twice with the soundtrack playing. We went horseback riding on the very southern end of the South Island, and it was an attractive idea to go out on the beach, but the irony is it was very blustery and windy that day, so we had to go back inland to get away from the sand. It's a mountain parrot, Kia. I have lots of stories of what Kia was, but no time at the moment, unfortunately. We were at a Vista Point and just landed on top of the car. The last place we stopped at is Milford Sound. This is not a sound, it's a fjord. It was carved out by a glacier. And you can take a boat right up to the edge where the rock face is. And you'll see where they did that with our boat. And there's a waterfall coming down, and people just ran around, put a cup under the waterfall, got a glass of water. So the big thing is you get on the boat and you go all the way out to the end of the sound, into the ocean water, turn around and come back. It's very rugged. There's a waterfall. We bow of the boat went right into it. More sea lions and seals. And there are people who get campers, these vehicles, and they will go from campsite to campsite, and they're all different colors and shapes, like Escape, you know. We stayed at a lodge called Milford Lodge. That's the reception, and there's a restaurant in there. And we stayed at a chalet, which these were the high-priced ones. We didn't stay there, but very nice accommodations. And then the last stop was in Queenstown. That's where the airport is. And you know, Queenstown has got this huge lake and mountains all around it, and that's your quick tour.
Wow.
Nice.
Yeah, it was playing twice on me. So. All right, so I was going to tell you about my itinerary. So on January 7th, I took off from Dulles Airport. I flew to Los Angeles, and I got another plane, and I flew to Sydney, Australia. These are the only two pictures of Australia I'm going to show you. I spent 4 days there visiting my daughter, who was an au pair for 6 months, and now she's actually traveling, and she'll be back in the middle of March. We could smell the smoke. I won't talk a lot about the fires, but it was horrendous. First day was clear. That's why we went to the Sydney Opera House or the bridge. We actually walked over the bridge. We didn't smell soap. The next couple of days, we could see the haze, smell the smoke. And if you want to know what it's like, just finish burning a fire in your fireplace, go sit in the ashes, and that's what it smells like. It's horrendous. On the 13th, I flew over to Christchurch. I spent 4 days with the Thomases. You'll get a bit of that. I then spent 2 days down at a place called Lake Tekapo, and it's a dark sky area. So you can just walk out of your residence and look up, and you can see the Milky Way. And the only bummer was, I looked up and I go, there's Orion. I can see Orion in the northern hemisphere. Then I drove down to Cromwell and I stayed with Scott and Margie Brown, and I'll show you actually my residence there. I was there from the 19th to the 26th. Now, the whole theme of bringing the gospel back to Israel, to everything that's a part of this mission trip. So I will talk about hosts who are New Zealanders who are hosting Israelis that come in and stay in their homes. I got to make that point so you understand. So there's an interface between people who believe in Messiah and people who need to know their Messiah. So that's a critical part. Celebrate Messiah. New Zealand started with one barbecue location in Wanaka, New Zealand, and now it's expanded. It's expanded to number one is Zula Lodge. It's a backpacker lodge. I'll show you some pictures of it. That's where Israelis come and they can stay for 2, 3, 4 nights, and it's free for them. The next place is the Homestead in Waituna, which is down towards the east coast of the South Island near Dunedin. And again, it's another place where there are rooms. Israelis can come, they can stay several nights, and you'll see how they have a communal kitchen, communal lounge, and they can talk. Tianu is a town on the west side, and right now there is a parking lot where campers can drive in and stay at the Fiordland New Life Church, and there are pastors and Celebrate Messiah New Zealand people that will go talk to the Israelis who are staying there. It's another way of interfacing with them. They hope to go to Manapori. I've got Manapori Campground. Hopefully that they will acquire a campground and not be using the church parking lot. You'll see a picture at the end of Hazel, who's a 90-year-old woman. Her house has been used for hosting Israelis. She's had thousands of people stay in her home. She is close to the end of her life, so she has put her house in trust so that when she dies, that house will be hosting Israelis, and Celebrate Messiah New Zealand staff is helping to continue that house and that function. In Wellington, it's a town on the south end of the North Island. There's a gentleman, Nigel, who conducts tours. So Israelis don't spend a lot of time on the North Island, but he will find them before they head south, 4, 6, 10 people. He can guide them around Wellington. It'll be a walking tour, car tour, and then he brings them to a Kiwi barbecue, and he'll tell them about a Maori prayer, a native New Zealander prayer. And he's a pastor, so he segues that right into the gospel. So the New Zealanders are really bringing the gospel back to those who are intended to be giving us the gospel. So I talked about Wanaka. I'll show you where that is on the map. The barbecue that was being held by Scott Brown in Wanaka years ago is now being hosted by a gentleman in Invercargill, which is on the very south coast of the South Island. So there's barbecue still. And basically what happens is they spread word of mouth around town. Hey, there's a free barbecue, and backpackers all filter there. You might get Germans and Swiss and Brazilians or whatever, but usually Israelis come in with them. Prayer for Israel is another ministry. Teresa and Michael Thomas are helping to support that. It was basically supported by another group, and it's kind of like filtering down to a point where now it's being passed on to Celebrate Messiah. And Teresa daily works on updating the website. Concert of Prayer is something that Teresa and Michael also host. They'll go to a church, they'll go to a school, they go to a barn, they go over where they do it, and they get people together and they conduct prayers for Israel, and Teresa will sing. That's why it's a concert of prayer. I'll show you a very short video clip with her narrating that later. Michael is also involved in developing a smartphone app for international networking, so people know where they can be hosted and stay overnight. This is not just for New Zealand. Celebrate Messiah New Zealand is involved in is training new hosts. And the last video I'll show you tonight will be hosts who have been doing this for a while, speaking about various questions that reflect their experience so that new people can come on board. By the way, you can host Israelis in your home. This international network now includes the U.S. There are additional activities that include churches in New Zealand and these international networks. This is a postcard they took a picture of on the refrigerator at the Thomas's house, and this is Zohar. Zohar is, I'm pretty sure he's Israeli, he's fluent in Hebrew, and he stays at the Homestead for the summer when they're there with Israelis, and there could be no more effective way to talk to Jews by having a native Israeli speaking Hebrew to you. The last person I'm going to mention is Brendan. Brendan and Katie just came over from the States, and Brendan is very much in ministry. He's out of Moody Bible Institute, and he's really sort of a managerial type person, and so he's going to help with sort of the mechanics of the ministry. So I'm rushing through, but that just shows you start with one barbecue, and then voila, look at all this, right? They're doing a lot of stuff. A couple of years ago, I talked about this tract that's over here on the left side. This tract in Hebrew explains to Israelis why it is that New Zealanders open their homes to them. And then, oh, by the way, it takes them right into the gospel. Bobby, if he's here, he would make sure that I tell you that Mishkan, along with another ministry, was responsible for New Testaments to New Zealand to be given out by Celebrate Messiah New Zealand. There's the New Testaments. And you'll see Scott Brown in the back of his car. When we were doing interviews with hosts, every time we'd stop or go to a different place, he'd pull out books from the back of the car, and they're in Hebrew. Some of them are like the Gospel of Matthew, Gospel of John. One of these, I think, is just basically a novel in Hebrew, and they hand these out to the visitors. And there are 5 copies, I think, here of this little brochure. You're welcome to look at it. I suppose you could sneak off with one or just leave them around. But this is for the ministry, and it really rings true. Bringing God's message to the original messengers. We as Gentiles, if you're Jewish, you don't have to listen to this, but we as Gentiles are supposed to be receiving the word of Adonai and of the gospel from the Jews. And it seems like things got turned around. So there's Scott Brown, and that guy that looks like me probably is. So my mission trip goal was to do videography and help those who wanted videos or photographs to go along a learning curve, because I'm only there for a week or two, and I'm trying to give them video products, and we didn't quite get some of them right, and they realized what they had to do to prepare so that if I come to do videos or pictures that they get what they want. One project worked perfectly, and that's the last thing I'll show you about hosting. So, at this point, when I'm done with this slide, we're going to turn off Facebook, because I'm going to show you some more videos and slides with people who haven't given permission. But I visited Christ Church. I'll show you on a map later where that is. I drove down to Cromwell. When I was in Cromwell, I stayed at an estate that was bought by a dairy farmer who had 5 dairy farms on the Northern Island. He sold 3 of them. He's going to sell the other 2. He and his wife are moving to the South Island. He bought this property because it has cabins on it. He wants the cabins so missionaries can live there. The Browns are living in one of the cabins. You'll see some pictures. I stayed in one of the other cabins, and I'll give you a closer look at what it is. It was a delightful place to stay. 2 days after I left, more missionaries moved into the cabin I was staying in. So Leslie is the farmer. What an incredible man. He understands how you raise cattle. He understands things about the environment, including climate change and all the regulations and everything. This man knows God, and he knows the earth, and it was incredible to talk to him. I will give you a little short video of the concert of prayer. It'll be a narrative by Teresa. I want you to listen to the narrative because the video isn't in final form. I'll give you a couple of videos that are about a minute long to explain what Zula Lodge looks like and what it does. And then there's a 1-minute promo on what it is to host people. And then the final one is interviews that we did. We went to 9 different locations. We talked to different people about their experience hosting. And really, this is the interface where our faith and what we should be doing and being able to convey our faith to other people. I walked away with one thing. I don't mean to insult anybody, but I think Jews in America are very hard to receive the gospel. But these Israelis, when they're sitting around the dinner table, when they're making coffee at 10 o'clock at night and getting you to stay up until 2 and talk some more about Israel, they're open. And when you start to make the connection with their Tanakh, their scriptures, with Messiah, boy, it just opens doors. It's just incredible. And to be witnessing that through these people who are hosts, it just really touched my heart. So unfortunately, we have to turn